Yo, what's happening, guys? Welcome to a brand new edition of Rave, Diaries and Tower Block Tales with yours truly, Uncle Doug's. As always, thank you to everyone that's been watching the videos and liking and commenting and subscribing and building up the stories underneath all of these videos. I mean, we're up to about number 20 odd or something like that now. Underneath every one we've done so far is little pieces to every story that we spoke about that make the story a bigger thing, you know what I mean? Like the stories are becoming more complete. That's what I mean, I suppose. So anyway, big up you lot, yeah? Today's episode, so we're going to talk about a record shop today. We spoke a bit about Music Power in a previous episode. And obviously by now you would know that I'm from Dagenham and kind of like I was in the middle of between Music Power and Boogie Times. So very early on I used Music Power more than Boogie Times because of my connection with Lloyd Anthony. Over time that changed. I always went into Boogie Times, always. It was the first rave record shop I actually ever went into, which we'll talk about in a minute. But as time went on, obviously Music Power, because of Dean Savon and the way that the shop was run, it was predominantly more leaning towards the garage side of things before it closed down. And Boogie Times, of course, with the suburban bass link, went the other way, more towards the jungle side of things as time went on. So inevitably, you know, my loyalty went that way. But we're going to talk about Boogie Times today, and a bit of memorabilia that I've drawn out is this thing here. So that, I mean, it's just a piece of Boogie Times notepad, and that phone number on there, 592-2246. That's for someone called Tony Anderson. Yeah, I went to school with Tony Anderson. We was in the same class. And we left school in 91 and I bumped into him in Boogie Times in 1993, and he's a good, listen, he's still a DJ now. He ended up going to like holiday destinations. He went Thailand, he done all of that, and I still talk to him now and again now. So if you're watching this, Tone, big up, bruv, big up. You don't even know, you was an inspiration for me back then. You and Kid J and all them lot that used to get round to your bedroom and have a mix, mate. You was all much better than me back then in 93. Had tunes I didn't have and all that. So Tony Anderson gave me his phone number this day in Boogie Times, and I've kept it ever since in my little red box. It says here on the notepad, Boogie Times Dance Music Specialist, and then of course the address, 3 Old Mill Parade, Victoria Road, Romford RM1 2HU, phone number 0708 727 029. Before 01708, there was 0708. Anyway, so that's my little bit of memorabilia. That was from 1993, I wrote that down. And I remember going to Tony's house after I'd spoke to him, and the tune that was out at the time was "You Got Me Going in Circles." That was the era that was written. So anyway, but the story today is about Boogie Times. So I'll take you back to the first time I remember going in there. My older cousin bought records before. I wasn't even into rave, as we've established through these videos, until sort of like the tail end of 1990. Radio Babylon was the tune that got me into rave, Me Beat Manifesto. Before that, it was obviously, you know, things like Pump Up the Jam and that. They were chart tunes, so I like them tunes, I guess, but yeah. But my first experience of going into what I would call a proper record shop, because before rave record shops, you know, obviously I went into Our Price and Woolworths and things like that, and you'd have, you know, the top 50 or top 100 would be under like a bit of plastic on there, and you'd say I want this one or that one, and they'd go and get it and give you it, and then there'd be tunes out in the racks. But you know, there was no way of really listening. You was listening to what was on in Woolworths or in the store at the time. They might have had a listening deck in at Our Price maybe, but the world of record shop, like rave record shop, should I say, was a completely different experience to any record shop, I suppose, that happened before it. I mean, years ago you had listening booths where you go and put the headphones on and stuff like that, but my cousin went in to buy the Magic Roundabout. Remember that tune? So it would have been 89, 90 that I went in there with him. And like I say, I just went in there with him. I didn't care about anything, but I remember going in the shop and it was packed in there. Packed. And I don't know actually when it would have been. It must have been 1990. It's not important. I'm getting lost in my own thing now. And it was packed in there. And the music was pumping out. Like, I'm assuming it probably would have been a Danny Donnelly or a Danny Breaks or a Winston or someone like that playing the music in there at that era. But, you know, to me, it was just a load of people in the shop, bag of noise coming out, the big grey speakers, But it was buzzing in there. Do you know what I mean? It was buzzing. I vividly remember thinking to myself, oh, this is mad. Like, it's Saturday afternoon and there's like 50 people in a, like a rave. I didn't even know it at the time. It was like a little mini rave in there. So anyway, fast forward to going to my first rave, wanting to become a DJ and all of that. I bought my Citronic turntables in the big coffin case. Funny, there was 2 Citronics, yeah, in a coffin case. An MRT 60 mixer in the middle, you know, the one, the black, the blue, the yellow. And then to the left of the mixer, do you remember the tape decks that had the flip up top? And you put the tape in it and flip it back down, and you could press play and record it, and it had a tiny little microphone. You'd have record, play, forward, rewind, stop, pause. And then next to it was a tiny little thing with perforated holes that had a microphone, yeah? It had one of them in it. The first thing I thought, I had one of them in it. So you could record your set, but obviously it was recording like a really bad recording in the first place, but also with all of the, you know, background noise and the atmosphere and everything else that went with it. So it had that in it, and then it had 2 lights that come over. And obviously it was a mobile DJ's set up before I got my hands on it. And then it came with 2 massive speakers. Like, my speakers were huge. And they're plugged into the thing, and the amp was built underneath it. It weighed a ton, this thing, anyway. So, yeah, I've got my set of decks. It must have been about probably June, maybe July 91, I reckon. Probably June of 91. I bought these Citronic decks, these massive speakers. And at the time, I was 16, yeah, and I was just on the verge of leaving school. I left school in 1991. So it was in the time when you was going back and doing your exams and all of that malarkey. And I actually worked at McDonald's in Romford, in the Liberty Centre, which was, they called it McDonald's 2, because there was 2 McDonald's in Romford. So when you got a delivery, we was McDonald's 2. It was upstairs. There was a nightclub upstairs called Ritzy's as well. On a Saturday night, it was proper, and a Friday. That McDonald's was lively, mate. On a weekend, it was lively. I see a few punch-ups in there when I worked there. But anyway, so I'm a DJ now. I've got a set of decks in it, and I remember running round to Boogie Times. The first few records that I bought, I run round to Boogie Times, which was right up the other end of Romford from where I was. I mean, if you know Romford, you'll know where the Liberty Centre is, and to sort of get round to Romford. And stupidly, I could have cut down the road and gone in the other way of Victoria Road, but I ran all the way through the town centre, I remember, right the way through the market, and then down, I think it's South Street, all the way down to the bottom, did a left in the Victoria Road and into the shop. And I bought, if I remember correctly, it was Crystal Waters, maybe, Gypsy Woman, T99 Anastasia, Bug Khan and the Plastic Jam Made in 2 Minutes. Might have been an alternate tune, Infiltrate, maybe a 2 Bad Mice tune or a Rhythms. I don't know. I bought about 4 or 5 records, and I was about, I think back then I was about $4.99, something like that. So, you know what I mean? I was working at McDonald's, I was still at school, 16 years old, going and weighing out 20-25 quid on tunes while I'm trying to go to raves. It was a lot. I don't know how I juggled it all, like, you know, anyway. So, my love affair with Boogie Times started really on that date. Like I say, I went to Music Power more because of affiliation to someone that I knew in there. But Boogie Times was a good shop, like pound for pound. It was up there with the best record shops in the country, I'd say. Obviously, Suburban Bass was the record label that they ran out of there as well. So they had a lot of exclusive products, especially from the Essex based label. So you got to think Ram Records was just about to start up. You had Out of Romford Records and Strictly Underground Records. Well, Mark and Danny Donnelly didn't always see eye to eye. But my point is, anything from the Manor especially would go to Boogie Times first, because it was probably, I would say without knowing it was probably the shop in Essex that sold the most records from sort of 91, 92 up until the mid-90s, I would hazard a guess at, for jungle and hardcore and all of that. So yeah, so now I'm going in there, I'm buying records now, innit? I'm going in there probably once a week, I suppose, even though I shopped more at Music Power. I would say I still went to Boogie Times once a week, because it was easy. I could get a bus 174, 175 from the Heathway, get off right outside the shop pretty much. Even if I wasn't buying records, I'd go in there, pick up some flyers, get myself a Rave Scene magazine, just like I was bitten by the bug, you know what I mean? By the time I'd gone to my first rave and bought my decks, like I was fully in. I'm still in now. That's how much it meant to me. So I was in, and it was all new to me. You know, every single thing. Watching the DJ mix in front of me, like Winston, Danny Breaks, them man mixing in front of me. I was just soaking it all in, all of it. And the funny thing is about Boogie Times, which meant the world to us lot as youngsters back then. You never knew who was going to walk through the door. So as time went on, getting there in time for the distributor to get there become more important. But in them early days, someone like Rachel Wallace might come in, who is obviously one of the big singers of that suburban bass era we're talking about. Or DJ Hype might come in and go behind the decks and get on the decks and have a scratch, and then, oh mate, it was amazing, do you know what I mean? It was buzzing just seeing these like heroes of ours so close to us instead of being in a rave up the top. And the early days that I remember going in now, like over time, what they worked out was if everyone can listen to different records, then they'll buy different records. So the DJ would be mixing, but you'd have listening posts going back to what happened before with headphones and all that. So, you know, 5 or 6 people could listen to what they wanted to rather than just what the DJ was playing. But in the early days, mostly Winston and Danny Breaks would be in there, yeah, and they would be laying it down like it was a rave, yeah. And it was so clever because the big Boogie Time speakers, the big grey speakers, which we're going to get to as well in a minute, they pumped out, and because of the vibe in there, everyone was in there having a puff and all that, you know what I mean, flyers, where he talking about your rave, oh, where was you at the weekend? Oh, I went to Rain Dance, where did I was down 4-8, oh, was you? Yeah, no, I went thingy, oh mate, I've got to go, went Stearns or whatever. That was all part of the buzz, and like the DJ's mixing in the shop. There was no other decks in there, it was just big speakers pumping out, and he's playing the latest cuts. Not the under the counter stuff, which again we'll get to in a minute. It was the over the counter stuff to sell to the cannon fodder like us. Yeah, the ones that didn't really have a clue and were naive and new to this thing. But because they were mixing it in and the vibes right, and then they'd go like as they mix it in, as soon as you heard it coming in, you had to be quick because sometimes they might have 1, 2 or 3 copies. Sometimes they might have 50 boxes, but if you weren't quick enough, sometimes you go, yeah, and they'd be like, oh, sorry, bruv, that way they're all gone now, sold out. You might never get that tune again back in them times. So you had to be quick on the draw, man, to get the rhythms that you wanted. And more time, they were good tunes that you was happy with, but sometimes every DJ who bought tunes from record shop knows this. You used to get home, put it on your decks at home, and even if you had big speakers and that, sometimes you go and be like, not all that one, to be fair, mate. Not all that. It sounded sick in the shop, but it's not all that. We was all victims of that, and obviously as years went by, I realised that like your Winstons and that of the world that worked in these record shops, they were very good at their jobs, and they were good at musically manipulating people like me who were very young and naive to the thing. Like, you would go in there and there would be a record in the rack for ages that wouldn't sell. They would take it out the rack and then maybe try and sell it to you from under the counter and all them kind of tricks, you know what I mean? But as much as it's a bit of a liberty, it was all part of the growing up process and the learning, and I loved it all. Do you know what's mad? I don't want to say I love getting ripped off, because no one likes getting ripped off, but see that little journey that we all went on back then through Rave, where it was all a little bit of skullduggery and street culture and learning your way. Mate, I loved it, even though I know now some of it was like I bought records that I didn't have to buy because of the way they were played to me. Good, because then I learnt that lesson, you know what I mean? So, yeah, that was a really, really, really good era, that early era of Boogie Times that I remember. Even though I weren't one of the first ones through the door, by the time I found it in 91, that first 2 or 3 years going down, it was wicked. And obviously, the more I went down now, I got to know the guys that worked in now, and I never really got properly sorted out, but I did get sorted out, you know what I mean? By the end of my era of buying records out of there, which would have been 96, I was getting nice stuff, but it did take me a long time, and a lot of big DJs would come down there. I mean, you had the guys that were around the label, like I've just mentioned, your Hypes and all of them, but then obviously the big DJs, your Randalls and all of these people would pop in the shop and they'd have bags of it. You know, you'd be waiting, you'd be like, got anything else left in there? No, that's it, mate. One of the others would come in, you just get a massive bag or a few white labels that just go over your head, and you look behind and it'd be whoever's standing with DJ Rap or whatever taking a fucking tune. You'd be like, and you got no more of them? No, mate, no, there was only one of them. Like all that talk, you know what I mean? But again, it was all part of the growing into the thing, you know what I mean? The culture of today is like now. Back then it was like, we all kind of knew and accepted our place on the ladder, and it was a beautiful thing. Like, you started as a nothing and you grew slowly into the something that you wanted to become, instead of like, I'm nothing but I bought some equipment and now I'm something. It shouldn't work like that, and it doesn't work like that. When push comes to shove, it doesn't work like that. So yeah, as time went on, Boogie Times had to evolve, and obviously they had a very, very strong following of record buyers, merchandise buyers, which we haven't really mentioned. The sub-bass merchandise and the Boogie Times merch, the slip mats, the t-shirts and the bags and all of that, the record bags, everything. They was all really, really big sellers. And obviously over time they got better at business, and they worked out, if we have a few decks in here, we can have the DJ playing, but also people that might want to come in and buy some other style of music or whatever, they too can listen. So they brought that in, and it slowly changed. Winston left, Danny Breaks left, other people started coming into the shops. I forget if Melvin D was one of them. Who else worked in there? I can't even think. Neil, I forget his name there. Neil worked in there. They're going to kill me because I should look. There was a series of people that worked in there after that sort of, what I would say, that golden era, the original era of Boogie Times sub bass, and of course over time flavours changed. So as jungle drum and bass started to change in its sound, and garage music grew in its popularity, they started to incorporate a bit of that into it more than they had done in the past. So obviously it changed. I keep saying obviously a lot, don't I? Sorry. Inevitably it did change over time to adapt to the times that we were living in. But it was always predominantly a jungle drum and bass shop. It always stuck by its roots right up until when Danny sold it. I think it would have been sort of, I don't even know when, later part of the 90s maybe. And then things really did change, and it lost its soul, and it lost really what it was, and like all the record shops, it closed down in the end, sadly. But yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a bit about the speakers out there in a minute, but one more thing I do want to say that's really important, and it's funny because it's nothing to do with music. Next door there was a sandwich shop called Feedwell, yeah? And I ended up becoming really good friends with the couple that owned it. They was in there for a long time. It's gone now, sadly. But Feedwell next door, you would go in there to get a bit of grub, because we would spend all day down there. Like, we wouldn't be in and out, buy a tune and go on. Like, you would get there on a Saturday round about maybe 11, 12. You wouldn't leave there till they kicked you out, but you'd have to eat. So next door, cleverly, instead of like fight, because you would be in Feedwell, mate, and the base was it was a sandwich shop, yeah, a good sandwich shop and all, like a delicatessen type thing, all different fillings and nice rolls and proper. But instead of fighting against them, where it would be like beeline would be, especially on a Saturday afternoon, the glass on the sandwich would be shaking and the walls would be shaking. They became friends with them, and they did like the Boogie Times BAP, which was done in the Boogie Times. See that graffiti handwriting now? Like the menu was done in that, so they worked with them, and all of us lot, cleverly, we all went in there because we loved them. They'd be like, hey man, and all that. And so even though it's nothing to do with a shop, it gave that community vibe again. It was just that extra little bit. You didn't have to go around the corner to Mackey's or go around whatever. You had the sandwich shop next door. You'd stand outside eating, having a puff and all that, with other people that was there to buy records, buy rave tickets, pick up flyers, buy pick up magazines or whatever. So the sandwich shop played its part in rave culture more than they probably ever realised, in bonding us lot together and keeping us in one spot where we didn't have to go anywhere. You'd get a drink and that in there, and a little chocolate or a crisp or whatever. So yeah, Feedwell, big up. I forget the mate's name now, but I used to go in there a long time after all of the Boogie Times era. I was working on the post office, and me and my pal Pete Crockford, we'd go down there regular and get food out of there. Like, they used to do breaded chicken, lemon and black pepper in a torpedo roll. Come on. Anyway, the last thing I'm going to say, and I've probably left out loads. Some of these stories as well, just while I'm talking, I'll probably revisit them, because I'm telling these off the top of my head. I literally pulled that out and I've started talking about Boogie Times off the top of my head. So, I'm going to forget things, and I'm going to want to reintroduce them. So we'll do part 2, 3, 4, 5 if we have to. But for now, the last thing I'm going to say about Boogie Times, the big grey speakers, they were famous. They were famous in the manor, and they were famous beyond, yeah. And probably like every youngster that went in there back then, I used to think to myself, I'd be sick to have them speakers in my bedroom. And it's funny, isn't it? how life turns out. Because fast forward to about, I don't even know when it was, in the 2000s, maybe 2014-ish, maybe. Anyway, I get a message, maybe it would have been on MySpace or early days of Facebook or something like that. I get a message from a guy, Adam I think his name was, he's lived in Essex, so I hope I've got that right, Adam. Hopefully you'll watch this, because he was a Boogie Times guy as well, so maybe this will draw you in, but I'm pretty sure his name was Adam. I hope I got that right. Anyway, he lived in Essex, and he messaged me and he said, Bugs, I know you're really into memorabilia and the history of stuff, and I've got the old Boogie Times speakers. I'm going to chuck them out unless you want them. Mate, I was round there like a shot, bruv. I think I rang my friend Kieran, if I remember correctly, who had a van. I was like, Kia, mate, boom, boom, boom. And I think he lived over by Emerson Park, over that way, the geezer. Nice gaff he had, I remember that. And I went in there and I walked into his gaff, and there they were, just looking at me. They were looking really worse for wear. They was quite tatty. Obviously, they'd been pushed from pillar to post since Danny Donnelly hand built them back in the so I think he built them in about 87, I remember he told me, for a reggae sound, and they ended up in the shop, and then they've been passed from pillar to post, ended up in this guy's garage, and ended up with me. So I ended up with the speakers, and I've still got them now. Funnily enough, I've had them all this time, and I didn't know what to do with them. I wanted to get them working again, because they weren't working properly, and like I say, the grey speakers that we remember, they were frayed and torn. They just wasn't in a good place. So I've had them for a long time now, and I wanted to get them done up and get them back out on the road again, even if it's just part of they're the old Boogie Time speakers. So I've actually got a friend at the moment who's restoring them. I decided not to make them grey again, because I thought if it's not the original, then it doesn't matter. But I'm going to get them back out on the road again, and I'm going to eventually do like a thing, what they call it, exhibition, get all this memorabilia out, do it all properly, and I'm going to have them Boogie Time speakers set up. I'll get Winston and Danny Breaks and them lot down to have a DJ at it, so it's all authentic. But they're the original boxes and the original everything else. They're just going to look different because, like I say, the carpet stuff that they was covered in has just been pushed from pillar to post over the last 30 something years. So as sad as I was to see them in the state they was in, I'm going to make them look nice and cool, and however it is that I want them to look, because I don't feel they need restoring to look like the Boogie Time speakers. They're not that important. But they're still the same boxes and they're still the same speakers. So one day I'll have them back out again, and when I do, hopefully you can all come and build up on top of them like we used to years ago. So that's it. Before I go, I've got to thank Danny Donnelly, especially, of course, the head honcho over at Subbase Boogie Times. Still now, they're back doing their thing now. They've got merch and releases and all sorts going on back over at Subbase. But this is about Boogie Times, and I want to thank everyone that worked in Boogie Times. DJ Ash. Oh, mate, Ash. I hope you've watched it this far, Ash. Yeah, see Ash as well. Oh, mate, I told you there was, because I don't prepare. This is a lesson in not preparing, yeah. Ash is my brother. Like, I loved Ash. When he worked in the shop, because Ash was in the shop, let's get it right, yeah? When it was the hardcore era, going into jungle, sorry about this, guys, there's an extension now. It was Danny Breaks and Winston that were the guys. And as he went into jungle, Ash become the man. I'm so glad I didn't forget. Ash become the man in there, and he was on Call FM at the time. We used to go, and he was like, how can I forget him? The hero, bruv. Like, he was the only person that I knew personally that was on Call, and I loved Call. That was my thing, mate. That was everything I aspired to be. Came through Call FM, and Ash was my only link to it. So over the time that he worked in, I wouldn't say we become friends. He saw thousands of kids come through there all the time, and he says he remembers me, but I don't even know if he would remember me, because I was just another face in the crowd buying records. I had nothing really going on, when I knew him back then. But anyway, fast forward years later, obviously I get onto Call, I become Uncle Doug's, and things start happening. And I buck up again with Ash years down the line. And do you know what? Now I can say he is my friend. He's my family. Honestly, Ash, I love you, brother. He's just such a top guy. Like, I've met a lot of people in this music thing, a lot of them. And I would put Ash as a man, yeah? As a musician, he's already in my top 10. You know what I mean? He's in my top 10% of musicians that I know because of what he gave to us as Essex boys back in them times. But as a human being, as a man, mate, he's top 5% in my life of people that I've ever met. So Ash, I'm sorry I forgot you. And I'm not even just chatting to make you feel better because I forgot you. You know how I feel about you, brother. And to become friends with you, how we are now, how can I forget him? He's my pal. Hopefully he'll forgive me because I'm his pal. But all these years later, mate, it's a blessing because you was safe back then. But yeah, you was more than just a guy behind the counter that could have a mix and was on call. And made tunes with Vern and that on their Boogie Times label. What was that called? Anyway, I digress. Guys, thank you to everyone that worked in Boogies and everyone that got down to Boogies and everyone that put records and flyers and everything for all of us to take out of Boogie Times. Big up, thank you all. To Danny and all the team, yeah. You gave us memories and music that can never ever be replaced, you know what I mean? And they'll never ever be topped. That time of my life going into that shop in that era will never be topped. And you lot of Boogie Times played a huge part in that, so thank you, yeah? Right, getting emotional at the end there. Anyway, guys, that is the end of this week's, or say this week's, not on every week, is it? Told you I'm getting all flustered. That is the end of today's Rave Diaries and Tower Block Tales. Thank you for watching. Keep on commenting. Underneath all of these, if you've got stories about your local record shop or Boogie Times, Sub Bass, Danny and all the crew, anything like that, keep adding them. All the previous and future videos, add your comments. I read them all and I reply to them all. And I appreciate every single one of them. Don't forget in the other playlists as well, I've got the Run Come Follow, Uncle Doug's and the Archives, 2 other playlists that we've got going on that are music related. One's a video diary of my life, the other one is going back through all my old videos and photos and compiling them in a way you lot can watch them. So anyway, that's it for another episode. Peace and love to you all. Be lucky. We are out of here. One love, yeah.